Hello everybody, my name's Harley and today I have a video for you showing you how to get started on the GIF toolkit. The things I'll be running over is the components of the plugin, the example scene, and then I'm going to create a new Unity scene and show you how to use the plugin with some code from scratch. So getting started with the plugin. You have the core folder here, which you probably won't need to use, but this is the core code that communicates with the Tenor API. If you've fully learned how the plugin works and you wish to extend a little bit more or control a little bit more yourself, you can look into that. For beginner stages though, I would recommend just working with the handler, which I'll cover in a second. You've got the documentation. This here will have some example scripts, some use cases, and some recommendations. I'll also cover some of that in this video. The gizmos folder, this is Gizmo. In the handler folder, we have an example, and this is this scene here we have open, which shows you how to communicate with the handler component. Now the handler component here is a Unity component that's been made up to make searching for the GIFs a lot easier for you. Made it as simple as possible and as user-friendly as I can. And then we've got the press kit. So these images here are provided by Tenor, and I've included them in the package to make it easier for you so you don't have to get them yourself. One thing to cover is when using GIF Toolkit, this communicates with the Tenor API, which means it requires you to follow certain rules by Tenor, and they're very simple. One of them is you must attribute them when doing searches. So if you make a search and you're displaying GIFs, you've either got to show a watermark of their logo or include something in the search bar like search via Tenor. That's all covered in the documentation and you can take a look at that, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, so this is the example scene. In the example scene, it's imitation of a chat system that you may have in game. Here you can just send little messages and display some GIFs. So I'll get started and load this up. So you might be talking to someone, you might say, oh yeah, good game. And then you want to send them a GIF. Good game. And it might be something simple like that. So there's a whole lot of code behind that that gets everything going, and you'll be able to pull apart that on the example scene script. But for now, I'm just going to move straight into a fresh new scene and show you how easy it is to get started and get running. Before I continue, I just want to let you guys know this is my very first video I've recorded. I've done a bit of programming, I have some experience, but I've never actually really shown other people. So I apologize if I'm talking too fast or I make any mistakes. And for my accent, I'm from Australia. But anyway, we'll move on. If you like the GIF, if you like the toolkit, please rate it on the Unity Asset Store. That would be much appreciated. Enough of that, we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is going to create an empty game object. And we'll just call this GIF searcher or something. And this here will put the GIF searcher component. Got it right here, ready to go. Cool. So this component here is what handles all the GIF searching for you. It's a wrap around the core scripts. And I'll go into it. So you've got the Tenor API part here. This is where you put the API key that you're going to be using to communicate with Tenor. This one here is a public-facing API key. At the time of the video that it's being recorded, this does work. However, it may not work. It's publicly available on Tenor API website. It's not meant to be used commercially, so you can test with it, but once you start going, you might want to go and visit this website, get your own API key, chuck it in, give it a test, and then go from there. Cool. So the next part is the search parameters. We got search limit, content filter, and random search keyword. Search limit is pretty simple and straightforward. It's going to control how many GIFs you get back in a search. The API restricts you to a maximum of 50, so you can search anywhere between 1 and 50 GIFs. I personally think 9 is a good amount. You don't want to search too much that it's going to take you too long to get information back from the website. But you don't want to be searching one GIF where, you're going to have to do heaps of searches and you're just going to have to do it too often. So 9's a good number, I reckon. Next thing is the content filter. So depending on what type of game you're making, you may want to restrict the content that comes through from G to GPG to GPG PG-13, or all out it can include R. Just to avoid having anything come back in this video, I'm going to keep it to G. Okay, random search keyword. So you can't truly search random GIFs, but you can search random GIFs of a random word. So in this case, I am pulling random random. That's the default, but you can put anything in there you want to match a certain criteria. Okay, on search event. So when you make a search through this component, it's going to look for whatever is attached here, and it's going to send a message to that function, and that's how you handle the search results, which is one of the next things I'll show you soon. But before we get started, I'll just put some stuff into the UI. So we're going to need an input field where we can make some searches. We can start with the canvas and then an input field. And let's just bring this down to the bottom. And let's make this maybe 200 wide and about 60 high, maybe a bit wider. That's good. And increase the text size. Now, as I mentioned before, when using the Tenor API, you need to attribute them. So this is an example of one of the simplest ways. In the search field, in the placeholder, just say you're searching through Tenor. So search Tenor, and that covers you. You can also include a logo somewhere. It's up to you on how you want to work with it, but you need to let the user know that they are using Tenor to conform with their end user license agreement. Cool. So let's move on. We got the GIF searcher game object here. We got the input field, and we're going to add an event when you finish typing. So I'm going to call this event on GIF searcher called GIF searcher search GIFs. You got search GIFs string and search GIFs text, which is the one we're going to use. Strings there available for if you're going to hard code it through code and make the search yourself. So I'm just going to drag this, over and attach the text. There we go. Now, when I hit play, if I make a search, I'm actually going to get a warning come up, which I'll explain. So, hello. It says here, cannot do search event without object/function set up in inspector. So, because we haven't referenced an object here, it has no way of passing information back, so it doesn't continue with the search. There's no point searching on the API. So we'll get started on creating a function where it can pass some information back. So in the root of the asset folder, I'm going to create a script here and call it GIF example. And I open that up. I'm also going to attach it to this game object here. There we go. So straight away, we're going to need to reference the Unity plugin by using GIF Toolkit, and we're going to be using the handler. And we're going to need a reference to the handler component for the GIF searcher. So we're going to make a public GIF searcher and go back to Unity and reference that in here. And that's this component right here. Great. Now, here needs a function to be able to call back to. So we're going to create this function on the GIF example. So we're going to drag itself onto here. There we go. Now, there's two ways you can search. You can search by text or by ID. If you're making searches, you're going to be using it by text. If you're sending a GIF across to the server to other users playing the game, you're going to send them an ID and they're going to search by ID. You don't want to be sending full GIF data across a server. You just want to give them an ID where they can go and display it on their side of the game. So we won't be working with ID today, just over text. So When these functions are called, they require it to be formatted in a very specific way. You need a public function, and it needs to have constructors of a tenor formatted result and a boolean to represent whether it's a next page or not. So if I was to go into here, I can't actually select anything right now. So I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to create a function. I'm just going to delete these two, and let's call this public on search results. And we are going to need a tenor formatted results. So we go here, tenor formatted results, and a boolean for next page. And it would help if I referenced it was a void. There we go. Now if we go back to Unity and we drop down here, it's selectable. There we go. So let's just do in here debug.log results dot, what's something here we can just do, GIF results dot count. Let's just see how many results we get back and make sure that it's working. So I'm going to go in here, run it, and I'm going to type good game. Bang. We got 9 GIFs returned, which was put in there. Cool. Now let's create a place for the GIFs to be displayed on the screen. So I'm going to create a panel, and let's just take this up, move this away from there, put a little bit of a margin in, 50, 50, 50, that's good enough. Alright, cool. And we're going to display these images in a grid. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add another panel below it. Actually, that's probably not needed. I'll remove that. We can just add it straight onto the parent panel. So let's go in here and add a grid layout group. So you can chuck some images in here, just raw images to see what the size is going to be like. Chuck in the panel. We want a padding of 10 between each image. We probably want to display maybe 18 or something like that. So let's scale these up. Maybe what, 1, 2, 3, 5 per row. I mean per column, per row. And that. So we'll do 15. Yep, that fits good. Alright. So that panel is set up. Let's store a reference to that panel too. So we're going to create a public transform and call it grid container. Jump in here. Great. Okay, and now that we have to bring some images back in, let's take a look at how the example scene is doing it in this script. So I scroll down, yeah, it's all well commented for when you take a look at it. We have here a function called search results callback. This handles to detect whether it's a next page, in which case it's going to add results, or it's going to clear out all current results and get ready to add more. For this video, I'm not going to include this, we're just going to make some GIFs show up. So we're going to be calling display GIF search results. So if I come down here, I'll explain what's happening. So when you get the search results, you're going to need to loop through each GIF, grab that GIF and create a game object to store the references in. You're going to need a raw image to display a render texture. you need a video player that's going to play the content of the GIF, and of course the render texture which the video player will map to. And there's some few other things in here, and I'll run through it all as we set it up fresh in the next scene. So I'm just going to drag this off to the side. So we can comment this out for now, and we can start creating some objects. So we want to do a for each loop to go through for each bar GIF in results dot GIF results, and this is going to loop through each result that's turned. Now this is an object of key pair value, so GIF results is going to be a dictionary. It's going to have an int to represent the ID, which is what you can use to grab information from the API, and it's also going to have the media attached with it. So we can go here and go tenor formatted results dot GIF. So we're going to grab the GIF. Now we're going to conflict here, so let's just call this GIF result is equal to GIF result dot value of the dictionary, and in here you can see there is nano size, normal size, tiny size, the title of the gift, and several other things. So there is a helper function that you can call to get GIF by a certain quality. That's covered in the example soon, but for now we'll just directly get the tiny size. Okay, so now we're going to need to create a new game object that this image is going to get stored in. Let's go game object, go is equal to a new game object. And the game object is going to need some parameters. It's going to need some name, and it's going to need some components that it's going to use to get started. So let's just make the name of the game object the ID of the GIF. So let's just give it GIF.API ID. In the example scene, we have some things attached to it, such as a button, image, mask. We're only going to need a image, because we're not going to be doing anything other than just displaying the GIF, sorry. So there we go, type image, and this here is just going to add a reference up here to the Unity Engine UI, just in case your compiler doesn't do that. Now it's not going to like this, so we're going to have to convert this to a string, and that's done. Okay, and now we're going to need to attach this game object to be a child of the grid container so it gets formatted correctly. So we're going to go game object dot transform set parent, I believe. Yes, there we go. And this is going to be to the grid container. Great. Okay, now we're going to need, we can probably do this a little bit differently actually. We can probably add a video component right on this. So let's also go a type of video component. Video player, sorry. And again, this is just adding a reference to Unity Engine.video. Okay. And let's change this to a raw image. In the example scene, it has an overlay, which would use image, but you'll need a raw image if you're gonna apply it to a render texture. So, what other things are we gonna need? Let's get the raw image component. So we're gonna go raw image is equal to GameObject.getComponent, type raw image. Let's just grab all of them, and video player is equal to GameObject.getComponent of video player. Okay, and rect transform No, I can't think if we need this, but we'll find out once we get going. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, to be honest. So if I do end up removing out a couple things, it's just because I'm going off the top of my head. And it's kind of late. Yeah, it's been a long day at work. Now, we haven't had a rect transform added here, but because we have a type of image, when the game object gets started, it should automatically create a rect transform that we can then reference. So let's leave that for now. A part of handler, sorry, just grabbing a drink. There is a class called helper functions. This one's static, and this gives you access to certain things. The two main ones is prepare GIF player. Now, for prepare GIF player, you can either use an existing render or a new render. In this case, we've already attached. We need to create a new render. Sorry, because we don't have a render yet. So we're going to create a new render, and this needs to reference video player component that's already ready to go. So that's done by the ref keyword there, and we're going to reference the component that we've already referenced, and we're going to output a new render texture. We'll call that render texture, and some other things here. Do you want to loop the GIF, and do you want to disable the audio? Most GIFs that you get back from Tenor aren't going to have any audio. So if I was to be making a game, I would probably just disable the audio altogether, so you're not just randomly spiked with audio as a player and not knowing where it's come from. But the option's there, depending on what you want. So we're going to loop it, which is true, and false to disabling the audio. No, sorry, true. We do want to disable the audio. Okay, now it doesn't like this. So what do we need here? We need to reference a video player, output a render texture, and we need to give it the GIF that we're working with. There we go there. So it's going to read information from the GIF, like the URL, where the video is embedded, and a couple other things. So now that we've got that, we have that added, the video is prepared, we have a raw image, and we have a render texture. So let's go to this raw image and set its texture equal to the render texture. I'm going to comment out this rect transform because I still don't think we'll need that. It just depends on how it's going to display in game when we get a search going. So what else have we got here? Yes, we're going to need to start the video player. So once everything's ready to go, right at the very end, you might have some code in between. You just want to go video player dot play. So fingers crossed, let's just jump in, see how this goes. Good game. Let's see what happens. Ah, I'm glad it worked. Alright, so I'm just going to go into here. We got room for 15 GIFs, so let's bring that up to 15. And I'm going to, before playing again, just going to go back into the code. This all should make pretty good sense, but I'm going to dig into some things and try and explain a little better what's going on. Okay, so most of this could probably be handled through some type of prefabs, a little bit more old school. I do like to code a lot of what I can do by scratch and only create prefabs when absolutely necessary. So to display some GIFs, you can see there's not too much to code. A decent amount of it is cut out through this helper function here, which I'll dig into. So if you were to do this yourself, you would need to set the texture size of the render the source of the video URL, whether it's looping, which is defined in the constructor, a little bit of work in here to work out how to disable the audio. It's not too much, but it's pretty much going to be one way every time, so might as well eliminate it in a function here. So 3 things you're going to need: a raw image, a video player, and a render texture. Once you've got that, you can easily display GIFs. From here, you could create certain things like turning this into a button, adding a button here, adding an on-click event when the button's clicked, pass through information from the GIF, such as the API ID, and do whatever you want, really. I'm going to leave this video here, though. I think that's enough to show you how to get started and maybe possibly help you decide whether you like this plugin or not. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a good day. And if you do end up using this and you do find it useful, please rate this on the Unity Asset Store. Alright, have a good day. Bye.